Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to my new show, Insight of Mind. I'm your host, Josie Waite, and I'm delighted to introduce to you our first guest this evening, Frances N. Lynam. Frances is the author of a future best-selling novel, Last Breath of an Elusive Summer, and is here tonight for his first public appearance to promote the book for children in need. And I'm pleased to say all authors' royalties will be given to charity. So please welcome Frances N. Lynam. Frances, thank you very much for joining me. It's a pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank you for inviting me.
So, Frankie, can I call you Frankie? The question that is on the tip of everyone's tongue is how much of the novel Last Breath of an Elusive Summer is actually true?
All of it. As far as I remember, those are the events that took place in the early 80s down in the south of France.
So, what took you to the south of France in the first place?
Basically, I was a young man who had been in love, was a bit lost, needed to find something else to do, and where better to spend a few months than down in the sun, working on a campsite.
Great. Tell me more about what happened after the ride to Carry-Leroux.
Yeah, that was a fun experience. I just arrived on the plane in Marignan and got this, I decided to hitch. I got this lift from a lovely man who had designs on other things than just getting me to the campsite, and but became a very good friend, and thanks to him I'm here talking to you today.
So the question that you seem a little reluctant to answer is, you know, there's a bit of a gap from you dropping out of college and you ending up in the south of France. Why were you really there?
I was trying to escape, I think, trying to find something new to do that would give myself a bit of purpose. I needed a bit of time, and I needed to find somebody who I could relate to and find some form of happiness again that had been lost for a few years.
So give us a little bit more. Take us back to the trip that really changed your life.
Yeah, it all started having had a great summer, meeting a lot of very fascinating, interesting people. I was working on the campsite as a guard and met some great characters who you'll discover in the book, like George, this huge black bald-headed fella, and his wonderful, beautiful girlfriend called Rosalene. And we were enjoying what would have been described as an idyllic few months down on the south coast. And then sadly we had to deal with a situation where some of the people I knew well and were very fond to disappeared. And a group of us had to set out to deal with this.
In the first half of the book, you describe your time in the south of France as a pure pleasure, having a nice cushy job and some light entertainment from the local girls. But what made your time as a guard worth writing about?
I think it was really the extraordinary people I met and the way they behaved in difficult times when we really had to intervene on behalf of these girls who disappeared. To get them back, and it was their bravery, courage and commitment to bring back people who they barely knew but who they felt didn't deserve to disappear.
So tell me a little bit more about Stephanie, and how did you meet Elizabeth?
Well, Stephanie's one of these great girls who had no inhibitions, just wanted to enjoy herself down on the south coast. She'd left home in difficult circumstances, was finding a new life for herself. And found me rather dull, I think was the answer, and so moved on to more exciting pastures, as you'll read in the book, and yet was very open in our relationship. She liked to stay friends, and we stayed together as friends rather more intimately. And then from there, a short while later, a young girl came and started working in the campsite called Elizabeth, who had an effect on me that was something that woke up a new sense of emotion that I hadn't had for the last 5 years since Sam had left me. And that created a sort of spark, a relationship between us that lasted a very short period of time because she disappeared too. And then with her sister we set about trying to find her.
So you've talked about these three girls missing. How did you go about finding them?
Well, I teamed up with her sister, Tina. Tina got very worried when Elizabeth didn't turn up one day for an afternoon on the beach. And together with her other sister, Alice, we set in motion a process of starting to look for her, which eventually ended up with Tina and me driving in on a motorbike to the docks in Marseille to see whether she hadn't been taken on board a Russian freighter. And from there, Tina and I ended up in jail overnight, detained by the French authorities, which was slightly unusual because the pair of us spent the night in a cell together. The reason for this is that the French government wanted to allow the boat to leave for other reasons.
So, can you elaborate why the police didn't help you here?
Well, the police were involved, or the French government was involved in an activity that they preferred nobody to know anything about. And our looking for Elizabeth on board the boat would have exposed an activity that they preferred keeping out of the public domain.
It's quite hard to believe that a 20-year-old naive young man managed to get a group of people together, misfits from different circumstances, on this insane mission when they knew their life was on the line.
Yeah, looking back, I've often found it hard to believe myself. Fortunately, over that summer, I got to know George. George was involved in activities that he would never have gone public on, which involved prostitution, drug dealing, racketeering. He had a circle of friends who were also engaged in that, and we managed to pull in one other guy off the campsite, which meant we had enough experience of dealing with difficult times. But it was more luck than anything else that got us to get to the girls.
So the way I read it, you've been involved in multiple murders. How can you defend that?
I think it depends how you use the word murder. It's a pretty harsh word. These were very difficult times. In some ways, we saw it that the end would justify the means. The girls were taken away. They were going to be sold into prostitution. We had to take any measure possible to make them safe and to bring them back. And unfortunately, there was a certain amount of collateral damage that happened on the way.
And you aren't worried the French government will follow up with this?
I might have been worried, except I think you'll find if you ask the French government about this, they will decline to admit any knowledge of any of these events ever taking place. They were involved in activities which they shouldn't have been doing. That would have exposed them to political pressures from other parts of the world, and we just happened to be in the way. And so there is no trace of any of this ever taking place within either Tina and my nights in jail, nor the trip to rescue the girls, nor the other murders that took place in the Provence farmyard.
So you're admitting to murder here?
Yeah, in some ways we did set ourselves up as jury and executioners, but in fact we were behaving in the best interest of the girls, and that took precedence over everything else. We're also trying to intervene in a world where the French government was acting in a way that it shouldn't have been doing, and they have admitted it ever since and have made sure that none of this information has been made public.
I'm finding it very hard to believe your story, and if it is true, you should be locked away for life. Jesus Christ, I've got a murderer here on stage with me, confessing to a crime in front of a live audience who thinks he's going to get away scot-free. Ladies and gentlemen, my first guest, Frances N. Lynam, The Last Breath of an Elusive Summer. It was a great book, and I can't say I believe everything I read, but I will leave you to make your minds up. That is it from me, Josie Waite, on Insight of Mind. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.